Welcome into another episode of Locked On Phillies. In today's episode, well, the Phils know their matchups. Who should they want to play? I'm going to tell you who I'd pick on today's episode.
You are Locked On Phillies, your daily Philadelphia Phillies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, this is Locked On Phillies. I'm your host, Connor Thomas. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You may know me from some of my other work in the sports talk radio space or sports talk space in general. I've been over at 97.5 The Fanatic here in Philadelphia for 5 years doing work on the radio. I've been a credentialed Philadelphia Phillies media member for 3 years, and this is my third year as the host of Locked On Phillies. Please make sure you're rating and reviewing wherever you consume your podcast. If you enjoy our content, leave a nice review or a comment. And please make sure you're subscribing to the YouTube. If you haven't checked us out on YouTube yet, please do so. The video version, I mean, you get to see the expressions that I make and like some things that like the graphics that set up the show and how we're doing it and everything like that. So would love if you did that and subscribe to the YouTube so that you get notifications when new episodes are posted. It also really helps us out. Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB, and you can win $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Prize Picks, awesome. Got to check them out. Now, today we're going to talk about, first to lead off, who should the Philadelphia Phillies want to play of their potential two opponents from one of the wild card series. Also, we're going to jump into, and there's a deeper conversation that we'll have throughout the week on this, but is there any secret to surviving the week off? The bye week has been a bit of a troubling thing for teams in the National League, but there's teams in the American League that have survived it. And we're going to wrap up with potential yearly awards for the Phillies. Since we have a little bit of time, the Phillies have given us a week off, so we have a chance to talk about stuff that's a little bit less pressing because, hey, frankly, Phillies have their feet up. They've been playing golf, I think, I think they played golf yesterday, some of the guys. But bottom line, let's start with where we said we were going to. Who should the Philadelphia Phillies want to play of their potential opponents in these wild card series? So the Phillies know now the setup of the postseason bracket. And in baseball, the postseason bracket doesn't reseed. So you're going to play the winner of the matchup between the 3 seed and the 6 seed. The Mets were the final team in. The Mets will take on the Brewers, who are the 3 seed, the lowest division winner. The winner of that series will get the Philadelphia Phillies at Citizens Bank Park on October 5th. So it's Brewers, it's Mets. The other wild card series is between the Braves, who are the 5 seed, and the 4 seed, the San Diego Padres. The winner of that one gets the Los Angeles Dodgers. And guess what, folks? The Padres, they played the Dodgers pretty well. I mean, divisional opponent. The Braves have just limped their way in because of injury. So we're going to talk about kind of like rooting interest on both sides of the bracket today. But first and foremost, let's focus on the Phillies opponent because you start getting caught looking ahead. And the next thing you know, you're sitting at home while somebody else plays your preferred opponent in the NLCS. So we're not going to do that. But between the Mets and the Brewers, which of these teams do you want the Philadelphia Phillies to face? There's a lot of stuff that goes into this conversation. The Mets are the significantly better baseball team. I mean, just overall, when you look at how they've handled the regular season, the Mets just put it together better. Like, they have the better pitching staff. They have the better record. They won their division. Now, it's only 4 games worth of difference. The Brewers finished at 93 and 69. The Mets at 89 and 73. But the Mets did that by finishing like red hot. The Brewers were pretty consistently darn good all season long. But on the other hand, the Mets played in the tough NL East, which again, by the way, shout out to the NL East. This is the 3rd year of 6 playoff teams, right? The expanded postseason bracket. All 3 years, the Phillies have sent 3 teams to the postseason. The first year it was the Mets, Phillies, and Braves. Last year it was the Phillies, the Marlins, and the Braves. This year it is the Mets, the Braves, and the Phillies. So the Phillies and the Braves, the teams that have made it 3 times. The Mets have done it twice now, and the Marlins once. So the NL East having 3 teams in each of the past 3 years since the expanded playoffs start, argument for them to be the best team, best division in baseball, absolutely can be made. But anyway, let's go on to this year because this is all that really matters. The Brewers have a really, really dirty bullpen. They have a solid pitching rotation, even though Corbin Burns was shipped off to Baltimore before the start of this year. The Mets, well, they're surviving on magic and belief and Francisco Lindor being amazing. And they feel like a less sure thing. But in baseball, sometimes momentum is all that matters. So what team do you take? Do you take the better team with the higher ceiling? Do you take the team that's hot right now? Do you take the team that's in your division that you're familiar with? Or do you take the team that's out of your division that are not familiar with you? It's a tough question. Now, the first place that we always start when it comes to the matchups you could like in the MLB postseason is pitching, right? I've told you over and over again, pitching is what wins you championships. And the Milwaukee Brewers pitching just seems to be significantly better than the New York Mets. They just do. When you match up with that team, they seem to find a way to put stuff together so much more comfortably than the New York Mets. Just looking at the setup for the season, right? If we're just going to go by and we're going to go by number ERA. I don't know why this defaulted to home runs, but who's leading the league as far as pitching is concerned? The Mets are in a significantly better spot than the Mets. The Brewers are in a significantly better spot than the New York Mets. They've just been a consistent team when it comes to pitching the baseball. And part of this is their bullpen. Part of this is looking at a situation where their starting has actually been pretty darn good as well. It's just, I don't know if this outweighs the kind of magic that you see from the New York Mets right now, the OMG Mets, the grimace Mets. It annoys me to say like that stuff matters, but remember how it worked for the Philadelphia Phillies back in 2022. Sometimes you can just get hot and have this belief in the team, and it gives you so much more. But the New York Mets finished the season with the 15th best team ERA at 3.96. The Milwaukee Brewers finished with the 5th best team ERA at 3.65. The Phillies are right in the middle there with the 11th best team ERA at 3.85. So you face the Milwaukee Brewers, you're facing a team with a better overall pitching staff than you. If you face the New York Mets, well, you're facing a team with an overall worse pitching staff than you. That's normally a pretty good first indicator of who's going to have the advantage in the matchup. That would seem to point to the Mets. The Brewers, do they have postseason experience? Well, I'm just looking through some of the players on their roster, and they've been there before, but as far as deep runs into the postseason, they don't have a lot of guys that have done that, right? I mean, of course, they have Rhys Hoskins, who we know was part of the Philadelphia Phillies World Series appearing team in 2022 and was also around the Phillies NLCS appearing team last year, even though he was injured. Being around one of those teams still gives you the idea of how those teams operate. But outside of that, I mean, you don't really have a lot of guys that have been postseason proven. That kind of points to a situation where, okay, Brewers, we'll see. Those are the teams that, and you could have said the same thing about the Phillies in 2022, and then the next thing you know, they go on a run. So this could be overrated. I don't want to overstate this, how much postseason experience matters. But it seems that the Mets may have a little bit more postseason experience, even just from an appearance standpoint when it comes to their roster. Like you look at the guys that they have, and Pete Alonso has played in Wild Card Series before. Francisco Lindor, back in his time in Cleveland, was there. I mean, you look at some of these guys in the outfield. Brandon Nimmo was there with this team before. Starling Marte has been there before with different teams. JD Martinez is a guy that was there for a long time with the Red Sox. And I don't know. That may be a wash as I look at that. So pitching, you're going to put a check in the Mets column for them being the more attractive option to play against. Experience, it's probably even between the two teams. And then offensively, well, you just got to go ahead and look around baseball and see who has the most runs scored per game and compare that between the two teams. So we'll go ahead and pull that up now. And I think that's rather comparable between the two teams this year as well. I just don't really think that the Brewers, I don't know. The star power is a weird thing too, right? The star power is another weird factor. You can tell already kind of where I'm going with this. I'm conflicted between these two teams because the divisional opponent factor is super weird. But I look at star power and I say, the Brewers, William Contreras is probably their biggest star. For the Mets, Lindor and Alonso kind of outweigh him as far as a hitter's concerned. The Diamondbacks have scored the most runs in all of baseball. The Brewers have scored the 6th most. The Mets have scored the 7th most. And the difference is 9 runs. So you can kind of watch that as well. So I'm looking at the Mets as the worst, or the lesser of the two pitching staffs. The other two things that I normally look at are a wash. The Mets may have more star power. They're more used to it. You know what? At the end of the day, if you can't beat the Mets, right? If you can't beat a team that snuck their way into the postseason that wasn't supposed to be here, they don't feel like the Marlins last year because they feel more talented than that, but they feel similar in that, okay, you're having something special going on in the regular season, but when you get there, can you perform? Here's what I'll tell you. I would want the Mets in the wild card series. I would want them for 3 games at Citizens Bank Park because you get them and they don't have momentum yet in the postseason and they're figuring this out. And they had the wild card collapse back in 2022 when they won 100 games or whatever, 101 games, whatever it was. Well, when I look at it, that's a team that hasn't built momentum yet. Now you think if you play them in the NLDS, well, they will have already won a series and the Mets magic will be crazy. Do you want to play the team that was expected to be there, so it's less of a momentum builder? Like if the Brewers win the wild card series, they're going to say we should have. We were a division champion, and they're not going to be like pounding their chest over it. The Mets do it; it's just more we believe type of stuff. Forget it. Give me the Mets. I want the New York Mets, and you can clip this and make me look stupid, but either way, you can't hurt me because either way, if the Phillies lose in the NLDS, I'm going to be pissed, whether it's the Brewers or the Mets. So if you think you're going to get me in an aha moment and recording this and posting it back if they lose to the Mets, I'm still going to be upset either way, so you're not going to make me any more upset. But I think the Mets are the better matchup for the Phillies for all those reasons we just went through, the ones that are washes, the ones that are in favor of the Phillies that way, and the Phils are the better team than both of these teams. They've handled both these teams well in the regular season. That's what we have. So that's my opinion. Let me know if you take the Mets or if you'd prefer to face the Brewers. By the way, that series, they're playing today, Tuesday, tomorrow, Wednesday, right? Yeah. And then I think they'd have a day off before game 3, or maybe they'd play all 3 together. I forget exactly what it is because the ones I've only seen have had the back-to-back games. But it's best of 3. So you want the series to go 3, so they have to play the extra game to cut down on the time they have off before the divisional series begins. So we're rooting for a 3-game series no matter who comes out. Coming up next, we're going to talk about the bye week. This has been a nightmare for teams, in the National League at least. Is there any secret to it, and what should the Philadelphia Phillies do? I have a bit of a theory that I want to walk you through coming up as we continue today's episode of Locked On Phillies. Well, first, let me tell you about Prize Picks. Prize Picks is awesome, and they got some new deals going on for you. Now, let me tell you what Prize Picks is first. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action. They got over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. You can run your game all season long on Prize Picks, and there's a great promotion going on right now. You sign up today, and you'll get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Plus, Prize Picks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday. Each Tuesday, Prize Picks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineups. That's a wonderful deal. And it takes like a minute to do. It's super easy. Like you're looking at one of the wild card games, like look at the Mets. You think William Contreras is going to have more than the number of hits they posted. Great. Take more than on that. And you only need to do it twice. You think Lindor's going to go yard. He's been unbelievable for the Mets. Great. You take more than on his home runs. Next thing you know, you could be in the money. There are a lot of great ways to get the job done on Prize Picks. So what are you waiting for? Why wouldn't you check this out? They're giving you the free $50 and everything as far as that's concerned. So you go ahead and download the app today. use code LOCKEDONMLB, and you'll get that $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the app today, use code LOCKEDONMLB, and you'll get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. So you got to check it out with Prize Picks. Pick more, pick less. Oh, my goodness, folks. It's really that easy. So what's up with this bye week? Why does it give people so much trouble around baseball? Or does it actually give people so much trouble around baseball? Now, we saw last year in the American League that the bye week went to the Baltimore Orioles first and foremost, and they got straight up swept by the team that ended up winning the World Series in the Texas Rangers. They didn't even win a game. That's kind of wild to see. So the week off clearly wasn't great for them. But they're a young team that did not have postseason experience, and the Rangers had some veteran players that had postseason experience other places. So that's weird. That's kind of interesting. I believe the other team last year in the seeding, the team that was the 2 seed, would have been the Houston Astros, who won that division. And when you look at that, you say, okay, well, they ended up playing in the NLCS and going 7 games. So they found a way to survive their second round matchup. Oh, and by the way, that same Astros team, they did it again in 2022. They found a way to survive the first round bye to advance to the World Series and win it over the Philadelphia Phillies. So one team's done it twice in the American League over the 2 years this playoff system has existed. The National League side, last year, the Braves and the Dodgers got first round byes. They both went out in the NLDS. The year before, the Braves and the Dodgers got first round byes. They both went out in the NLDS. So, yeah, your sample size is what? 0-4 on the National League side, 2-2 on the American League side for a total of 2-6. I don't think that's a big enough sample size to be like, there's a problem with the bye. Baseball's weird in general. If these teams didn't have a bye and you played these series against other playoff teams and there was like a 2-6 record for top seeds, you'd just say, well, man, it's been a weird stretch of a couple of years, but that's baseball and that's teams getting hot. So do I think there's a secret sauce to surviving the week off? Maybe to put yourself in a better spot, but it's still a tricky series in the NLDS. Well, I talked about it today a little bit with some coworkers down at 97.5 The Fanatic with the radio. I also think we're kind of in a mentally tricky spot, right? We're used to the Phillies playing a wild card caliber opponent that doesn't have momentum, that's just come off the regular season, that last year was the Marlins, who are not that good, that you guys says this back park that you beat the brakes off of. And the year before was the Cardinals, who we saw the year after ended up having an abysmal season. So, okay, yeah, the wild card series, the opponents you see seem to be easier. Well, now you're playing a team with momentum. You're playing a team that's already one of the final 8 teams in baseball by the time you play your first game. It's just a higher level of competition in the NLDS. Could you imagine if your first postseason series the last 2 years was against the Braves? It'd be like, oh, man, we're right in this right from the jump. So that does mentally make you think, this is going to be tougher. But actually, it's easier. The NLDS is always tough. The NLCS is always tough. The World Series is always tough. This is never easy. There's no walkthroughs to this. So that, I think, is mentally making us a little bit more nervous. But I would argue that this whole first round bye is not something we want argument is overblown. I just think it is. I think the Dodgers are perennial playoff jokers, or at least they could be labeled as such, as well as the Braves. And that's something that may affect it. It's also too small of a sample size. And they've run into teams that are apparently really solid, because the teams that have eliminated these teams, now, of course, they've ended up in the NLCS, but the Phillies, who are one of those teams, went to the World Series. I guess any team that eliminates them goes to the World Series. Silly argument, but the teams that they have played have been quality, right? No team from the National League has won the World Series over the past 2 years. So maybe you could argue that the Astros are playing even tougher out there and figuring out how the first round bye works in the American League. But they don't have the opportunity right now. And I believe they're losing to Detroit currently in the wild card series. Houston ain't what it used to be, and what a story for the Detroit Tigers. But I guess I don't think there's a secret sauce. Here's what I would do. I would play simulated games. I would go out there and I would get some minor league arms that the guys haven't seen, to come up and throw to them and not do anything crazy, nothing anyone can get hurt, but play simulated like 6-inning games every other day that you have off. So Tuesday, Thursday, and then you're ready to go on Saturday. So like 2 simulated games, a light practice Wednesday, a light practice Friday, and then roll into the series. That's what I would do. And I would have given them Monday off, which it seems like they got. I heard some of the guys might have been out golfing, just kind of relaxing. Like, listen, some of this is relaxation and resting too, right? They deserve that. It's not just, hey, we're grinding. It's not football where you have to put together this whole game plan. They don't even know where they're playing yet. So I don't blame them at all for taking a little bit of time to themselves and mentally resetting. But I think we're a little bit overly worried about the first round bye hangover. I do. This is going to be the show of things that I say that could come back to bite me, because we could be looking at a situation where I said I want the Mets, and you could get the Mets and it may not go your way, and the first round bye is overblown. If they lose in the NLDS, well, we're just burning the house down. All the takes, all the emotion. Let's hope we don't get there, folks. We have 4 days until the series starts, with Saturday, October 5th being day 1 of the NLDS. We know the opponents, but there's a lot still to figure out as far as who the Phillies are going to face. Coming up next, we're also going to get into a conversation about yearly awards, just because we have the time, right? The Phillies have some time to take to themselves, and we have some time to talk about some other stuff besides just the postseason opponent. So I'll tell you what awards could potentially be coming some certain Phillies players' ways as we wrap up today's episode. Let's talk about FanDuel, though, because FanDuel is the official sportsbook partner of the NFL. They're America's #1 sportsbook. They're absolutely amazing. They have everything you need to wager on football, or the Major League Baseball postseason, or when basketball gets going later this month, or when hockey gets going later this month. They have so much stuff that you can bet on, and college football has been rolling. If you want action, FanDuel's the place to get it. They have a lot of cool promotions. They have a lot of cool props, and you need to do this, folks. When you get a hunch in the middle of the game, well, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. So all your information is right there. You don't have to scroll between apps. You don't have to look up at the TV. Everything's right there on your phone. So you are betting with the most information possible. And you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. I don't know what more I could tell you here. Great odds, great props, great promotions, and a great app for a great sports book. How many times did I say great there? Like 5? Well, whatever the case, greatness, that's FanDuel.com. Go ahead and check them out. They are America's #1 sports book. Let's also talk about Game Time, because you want tickets for Red October. You only have a handful of days until the Phillies postseason rolls around. They will be playing Saturday and Sunday at Citizens Bank Park. So you want to get tickets, and Game Time is the #1 place to do that. Game Time Picks makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. It filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. It's super, super easy, and plus the process you go through for any Game Time tickets, not just postseason ones, but any concerts, comedy, theater, all that great stuff that you need tickets for, it's super easy. So what do they have? Well, they have all-in pricing. So what that means is you see the full price up front. You don't get like smoked by fees at the end or anything like that. They show you everything you're going to pay from the start. You also get views from your seat. So you know that when Zach Wheeler makes that big strikeout, you're going to be able to see it. You also get your lowest price guarantee from Game Time. The Game Time guarantee means if you find same seat or a similar seat for less in the same row and section, you'll get 110% of the difference. And your ticket is also, your purchase, I should say, is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. They've thought of everything, and they've made it as easy as possible. Just a couple of taps to buy tickets. It's super easy. That's the app that I use when I buy tickets to go to games. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. And plus, we'll even cut you a deal. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. So download Game Time today. What time is it? Folks, you know it. It's game time. All right, yearly awards for the Philadelphia Phillies. What could we potentially see? Now, there's not going to be an MVP award coming back to Philadelphia this year. There was a point where Bryce Harper was in the conversation, like halfway through the season, but I think that Shohei Ohtani guy might have it locked up. Understandable. The Cy Young we talked about in yesterday's episode. If you'd like to go back and check that out with Zach Wheeler and how he could potentially steal it from Chris Sale, I do think it's more likely Chris Sale gets it. The Cy Young is kind of a shot in the dark. Silver Slugger, as far as that's concerned, well, Bryce Harper could get it for first baseman. That's certainly possible. Alec Boehm could get it for third baseman. That's certainly possible. I don't believe Kyle Schwarber has any shot at DH because of Shohei Ohtani playing that position, but those would be the two guys that I would expect to have a real chance at Silver Slugger would be Alec Boehm and Bryce Harper at the corners. You don't have anyone leading the batting average list in the National League. So you're not looking at anything there. Luis Arias has been very, very good for the Padres so far. Well, this entire season. So you're not looking at anything like that. You're not leading the league in home runs or RBIs or batting average in general, none of your players. So the only other awards would be like reliever of the year in the National League. And I don't think that the Philadelphia Phillies are going to have the guy that wins that. Normally it goes to someone who closes. And maybe you could argue that Matt Strahm or Jeff Hoffman could be up for it. I don't know that that's going to be realistic. It depends on how much you've – reliever's so iffy. I don't even know how they evaluate it. I think both of those guys could be in the conversation. We will see if they actually get any type of hardware. The only other one outside of that is a Gold Glove nod. We know that last year that Zach Wheeler won the Gold Glove, and I believe he was the only one who won a Gold Glove for the Philadelphia Phillies. I know there are other guys nominated. Stott was nominated. Realmuto was nominated. But I believe Wheeler was the only guy who brought it home. Now, Ranger Suarez should have enough innings to qualify for a Gold Glove this year. But Zach Wheeler was really good defensively, and he's the reigning Gold Glove winner as a pitcher in the National League. So Zach Wheeler and Ranger Suarez will both be in that conversation. JT Realmuto will once again be in that conversation. Bryce Harper at first base, I believe he will be in the conversation for a Gold Glove over there. His defense has been that good. Bryson Stott has been solid defensively. Will he have enough reputation in his young career to be considered for a Gold Glove again? It's possible. Turner won't be at shortstop. He's got too many errors. Boehm, as good as he's been at third base, he won't be considered for a Gold Glove, I don't think. Castellanos in right field. The numbers might say as far as consistency that he could be in the conversation, but I think you watch him play and you say that's not a Gold Glove outfielder. That's a solid outfielder. I'm not taking anything away from Nick Castellanos, but the flashy plays don't exist as much as they do normally for a Gold Glove outfielder. Rojas probably doesn't have enough time in center field to warrant one. Marsh doesn't have enough of big-time plays in left to warrant one. I don't think the outfield has any Gold Glove guys in it this year. Not that they don't have Gold Glove caliber defense, because Rojas isn't a Platinum Glove caliber defender. He just didn't have enough time. Maybe he will be in the conversation. Maybe Johan Rojas will get a nod, surprisingly. But the guys I'd keep an eye on are Wheeler, Suarez, Realmuto, Harper, and possibly Stott. Those would be my look at those guys for Gold Glove. Also, the Phillies have guys for the All MLB team. That's the one other thing for yearly awards. All MLB, which is just like an all-pro team. You know this already. They've had a bunch of guys potentially available for that team. I believe it was 9 players eligible for All MLB that were nominated that could potentially make it. So let me go ahead and pull that up. Yeah, here are the 9. Jeff Hoffman, Matt Strahm, Zach Wheeler, Ranger Suarez, Christopher Sanchez. So 3 pitchers potentially eligible to be All MLB. Trey Turner, Alec Boehm, Bryce Harper, and Kyle Schwarber. So those are the guys that could be All MLB for the Philadelphia Phillies. Of them, Wheeler's going to be. Ranger and Christopher Sanchez, maybe an outside chance. Strahm and Hoffman both should be for relievers, but like I said, relievers are tricky. Harper, I don't know. It's going to be tough. Remember, this isn't just National League. This is just all of baseball. Schwarber won't because of Ohtani. Boehm at third base probably won't be, but he could be. Jose Ramirez in in Cleveland could get that. Turner won't be at shortstop. He just hasn't been as productive. Harper has an outside chance at first base. So Bohm, Harper, Wheeler, the two relievers, and Strom and Hoffman, and maybe Suarez or Sanchez. So you have an outside chance of like 3 or 4 guys on the All-MLB team, which is great. The Phillies should rack up the yearly awards this year. They should have a good amount compared to other teams in baseball because they were the second best team record-wise in baseball, had a lot of all-stars, and even with the slump in the second half, they still turned in a great performance as a team overall. That's all for today's episode of Locked On Phillies. Thank you for checking us out. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Now make your next listen Locked On MLB with Sully, Paul Francis Sullivan. He covers the baseball world in general. So if you want to keep up to date on what's going on in the Wild Card Series, which we'll talk about tomorrow as well, but he'll go more in depth over the full podcast episode. You can check his out, available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. He's also part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. But tomorrow we're going to talk about who won the first game of Mets and Brewers and what the big takeaways from that game were that the Phillies need to see, and also just a little bit more prep work for Saturday at Citizens Bank Park when the postseason begins. All right, thanks for joining us, and I'll talk to you tomorrow on our next episode.